Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And today, it's such a big deal, such a monumental big deal, because we're talking about Tristan and Isolde. Yes, the Wagnerian epic, orgasmic, love-death, philosophically Schopenhauerian mega thing. Yeah. Wagner actually wrote Tristan as supposedly a light interlude, taking a break from the Ring and something that he thought would be performable by other opera houses. But as usual with Wagner, he had no self-control whatsoever, and it got way out of hand. And the initial rehearsals had to be abandoned after like 50 rehearsals, I think, the initial performance, because they just couldn't do it. Yeah, and so it's a legend for its chromatic richness and its celebration of carnal naughty bits and all of that stuff. There's actually very little carnality in it. It's all in the music, to be honest with you. And the recording in question is, of course, this one, the live Karl Böhm with Wolfgang Windgassen, Marty Talvela as King Mark. Windgassen, of course, is Tristan. Isolde is Birgit Nilsson. Merlot is Cloud Heater, and Kurvenal is Eberhard Vector, and Brangena is Christa Ludwig. Oh, it's like the best cast you could possibly imagine. It really is. It's just unbelievable. And it's live, and it's the chorus and orchestra of the Bayreuth Festival. It was recorded in 1966 in Bayreuth. Beirut, as we used to call it. Anyway, and Karl Böhm is just the conductor to end all conductors of this. And I mean that seriously. Böhm was often shorted. I mean, he had a wonderful career, of course, but next to the great philosophical concept art conceptual guys like Furtwängler or Karajan or some of these other people, who make a whole philosophical folderol about the thing. But Karl Böhm was a stage animal. He really was. Christa Ludwig talks about him in her autobiography as one of the three great conductors she worked with. It was Böhm, Karajan, and Bernstein were the three she writes most deeply and affectedly about. As the ones who really taught her craft. And Böhm was, she said, the man of the theater, absolutely the man of the theater. And Tristan is so often not treated as a work of theater, rather as a philosophical piece, which is actually how Wagner sort of came to view it too, because he admitted, he said, well, it's 4 hours in which nothing happens. It's the way Wagner basically referred to it. Very little does happen in terms of physical action. I mean, the first act, it takes place on a ship, and the ship is moving theoretically, but Tristan and Isolde are just like sitting there taking their potion and wanting to kill each other, and it's really, and the Liebesnacht, oh my God, they just sit there. Toscanini said it best about the Liebesnacht. He said, if they were Italian, they would have 7 children already, but because they're German, they're still talking. That's the Liebesnacht. And then, there's always a little action at the end of the act in Wagner. At the end of Act 1, the ship docks. So everyone screams and yells, and the cymbal player plays, and the offstage trumpets do heraldic things. And then in Act 2, King Mark, does his endlessly boring guilt trip, and then Merlot comes running on and wounds Tristan, and takes about 30 seconds of action, and that's Act 2. And then in Act 3, well, really nothing happens, except that Tristan's dying for the first 45 minutes, then Isolde shows up, and then he does die, and then she has her psychosomatic musical orgasm and drops dead, singing her Liebestod, which sounds so grand when you can make a fabulous German compound word with it. But when you say love death, it sounds positively idiotic. And, one of the things that Wagner, whatever he wanted to say philosophically, however self-important and he thought he was also a man of the theater. And the thing that most impressed me about Tristan when I first saw it, which I waited for decades to do. I mean, it was only a couple of decades ago. I'd heard it a bunch of times. You get no conception of what it's like on stage from listening to it. Take my word for it. Because it's really exciting on stage, even though nothing happens. Somehow, everything that's happening, and because what's happening is internal, psychologically internal, it's happening in the music. But the visual imagery adds so much to what the music is describing. It really does. Assuming, of course, that it's not, a production that takes place in a 7-Eleven or something like that, where they're all going out for, burritos and Slurpees. But, I mean, that they take the actual setting seriously, it adds a tremendous amount to what you see going on. It's an exciting work. It really is. I mean, it shocked me to death. I expected to be bored out of my mind. But it was thrilling. It was absolutely thrilling. It was James Levine with who was it, Jane Eaglin and Ben Heppner, I think, or something like that. And, and even though they were like, enormous and, they looked like two huge, parade tents camped out somewhere, but when they were doing the love scene, the Liebesnacht, but it was so beautiful and it was so moving and, gosh, it's great, great, great music. And, a lot of it sounds like Ives' Second Symphony because he quotes it pretty extensively. And the first time I heard it, I started giggling because it sounded like Ives, not the other way around. But it works. It works fabulously on stage. And now, when I hear a recording of Tristan and Isolde, I want that sense of the theater. I don't want it to be just this sort of placid meander, and even the passionate moments are somehow constrained by the overall transcendental whatever it is supposed to be. No, I want to see some like white hot passion, and I want these characters' inner drama to be realized, and that's what this performance has. It's a quick performance on the whole, relatively speaking. It doesn't dawdle, and the singing is extraordinary, and the fact that it's live just does it. Remember, Birgit Nilsson recorded this in the studio for Schulte, but her Tristan, who's Fritz Ude or something like that, was not very special, and it wasn't as exciting as this more generally. Windgassen, of course, was the great Helden tenor of the mid-20th century, and he was there. How about we do it that way? And he was in very good voice here, in '66, sort of toward the end of his career, though. Marty Talvela is amazing. What you expect? Krista Ludwig is amazing. It's just done from strength all the way through, and it holds you. It just holds you from the very, very beginning to the end. A glorious, glorious recording of course, an unbelievably great opera, and one that is, I believe, at the end of the day, an opera, not a philosophical treatise. And it's a piece that really gains from being treated as something urgent and dramatic. And, I just find this thrilling. So there you have it, my friends. One of the greatest recordings ever! No doubt about it. So keep on listening and take care.